What is up, everybody? Svend here with Sportsman's Warehouse. We're going to be tying up a pheasant tail nymph variant. The reason is because it's a variant. We're using a lot of pheasant tail. We're going to start with a size 14 TMC hook in the vise. This is a nymph hook. We're going to be using some UTC 140 denier. You could also use 70 denier, but I really like this hot orange for this particular nymph. And then we're going to be using some pheasant tail fibers off of this natural feather. Comes 2 to a pack and will last you many flies. And then we're going to be using some medium UTC gold wire. I like it to be a little beefier. You could also use brassy. And then we're going to be using some midge. This is some vinyl rib in an amber color. I also like to use gray. We've got some crystal flash here in pearl. And let's go ahead and get a hook in the vise. And we'll start here by just putting it in, making sure that our hook's nice and secure. This is an unweighted version. Usually I'll fish it as a tag off of my point fly. And I'll put it down at a slight downward angle and start our thread right here in the middle, about a third back down the shank of the hook with 3 or 4 wraps working back, and cut out our tag in. And the reason for starting back here is I kind of want to build up the taper and save the head for some other materials that we'll build that up with. So I'm going to tie in some of that gold wire, and I usually tie in the wire first. It's a little trick I learned a few years into tying, and then as I work my way back into the bend, I kind of have that wire go over to the side for that, helping assist me in that first wrap, that it doesn't look funny. So that's more of a tier's OCD-ness than what the fish care about. I'm going to rip off about 5 to 6 fibers here. I like to go a little bit thicker on these because we're going to be using this as kind of a back to this fly, and so I want it to be nice and thick. I'm going to measure out my tail length, and I'm going to go roughly about the length of the shank, a little bit shorter. You could go as short as half of the length of the shank of the hook, but I like to do about 3/4. I'll secure that with 2 to 3 wraps and then work my thread up, kind of just making sure that trapped those pheasant tail fibers, and lift them up, don't tear them, so they're kind of out of our way. And now we're going to tie in all of the rest of our materials. So we are going to start with some of this vinyl rib, and I'm going to tie it in just right here at the tip. If I can bind it there we go, finally got it. And we'll work our way down, keeping that vinyl rib on the top, and then as I get to here, I start to pull it a little tighter over to the side. Same process as you pull this, though be careful not to stretch too much of it, because that's going to help us build our taper. And then we're going to tie in the next material. We're going to create a nice underbody. We have this hot orange color, but what I will do here is I'll just trim out 1 strand of this crystal flash. You could use 2 to speed up the process, or if you have some tinsel as well. And I seem to be having the same problem. If you have this problem, sometimes twisting your bobbin counterclockwise, if you're a right-handed tyer, helps to let that go up. You could also use this pinch wrap technique, and then once it's bound down, we'll just advance our thread to the hook guy, and then I'll just, without breaking this, as you pull this crystal flash or monoflash, it lays flat like tinsel. So I'm just going to coat this, working my way down. You could be very particular with your wraps, making sure they're touching, overlapping. You could use a different width of tinsel for this to speed it up, but the key is keeping tension so it doesn't slip, kind of like what it just did there. But you can always work your way down, and we're going to be going back up the shank of this hook. And like I said, this is going to be the underbody, and so it's not super critical that it is perfect. The faster you go with consistency is probably the better. We just want to add a little bit of that pearl-esque hue to this, because the vinyl rib will show this color, and I didn't want it to be super hot. I use this kind of as an attractor fly for sure. And we'll go ahead now, and with that midge rib, it's already a little bit stretched from when we pulled it, but I'm just going to start with my first wrap here behind the pheasant tail, and then I'll pull that back and then start with touching wraps, working my way up. And this midge vinyl comes in a bunch of different colors. What I'll do is I'll tie the same pattern, switching out a few of these different ribbings, making sure to always use the midge for anything smaller than, 14 is probably We'll probably use that. So then you can swap it out and adding like an olive or a gray or a clear or anything, change the whole appearance of the fly. And so definitely switch that up depending on the day. And then we'll pull over our pheasant tail, being careful not to pull it too tight, but just making sure it stays on the top of the shank. And I'll go ahead and trap that with 2 to 3 wraps, and then checking to make sure that it's spread evenly, that it looks really good. And then we'll come in with our wire now, and I'll start to see how I can cover up a little bit of that orange hot spot, but I purposefully left that orange back there as a hot butt. Like I said, this is an attractor fly through and through, so we'll go ahead and rib this up to keep that pheasant tail in place, make it a little bit more durable, and then I'll do a full wrap right here before I tie it off. And we'll just do wraps behind and in front of this this medium wire. And you could do a spin-off twist, a helicopter spin where you twist it, but I'm just going to use my flush cutters here. And then we'll fold back over this pheasant tail to create our wing case, and just making sure we've got plenty of room here at the head of the fly, that we're not going to run into issues with crowding the eye. That's key on this. We've got some iced up here in a olive brown. You could use pretty much any color you want, but this is a very flashy, productive pattern I've had here locally on my waters as collars. And I'll just double a little bit on, work my way back up. I want to put a little bit more, so put a little bit more. You don't want to build up a super huge head, but I want to definitely have a lot of this iced up flashiness going through. And if the thread's shining through, even better. But definitely want to get a pretty good dubbing on there to create that bugginess that we go for instead of using peacock. And so I did a single turn whip finish there just to keep my thread from falling off. You could also do a half hitch. And then the next step is I'm going to rip off about 4 to 5 more fibers, and we're not going to use the tips on this. I'm going to be trimming them, another technique in comparison to the other video I've done for the pheasant tail nymph. And I'll just tie those in, position them so that they're coming off to the side, maybe the upper section of the shank of the hook. That looks pretty good. And then I'll just flying V it over to the other side with some nice touching turns there, making sure that we're going to be covering all that up. And then the last step here is we're going to fold our wing case over and cover up that nice hump. And I'm going to do a wrap right in front of that big hump we have there, right behind the hook eye, and trap that down, and it will suck right in. And then I'm pulling back towards the vise, making sure to get 2 wraps in there, and then we'll go ahead and seal the deal over the top. I like that. And we're going to do a little bit of a cheat technique here with our UV resin. I'm just going to go ahead and whip finish this right now, because I trust in my my scissors getting close, and I trust in my UV resin making this a durable fly. And there we trap those. I might have missed the hook shank there, but it will hold. So let's go ahead and trim that out, making sure not to cut our thread. And we'll give it a nice pull test, and let's go ahead and get a good solid whip finish on there now. And making sure to lay that thread nice and flat, pull it tight, crank it down. Oh yeah, nice. There we go. So we got everything bound in there real nice. So let's go ahead and trim out our thread. Being a little bit careful with the fly at this point. We got our nice hot spot head, hot spot butt, and we got our hot spot flash in the middle and the body. We'll trim our legs right there. There we go. That is pretty much a pheasant tail variant. Added a few extra materials, a few extra funness, and then the last step is put a little bit of this thin resin right here on the top, spread it around with your the tip that it comes with, and then I kind of work it to the sides. You can work this material, this product, until you hit it with that UV light, but I want to make sure that it's got a nice cover there. It's going to protect it, and it is going to make it bulletproof solid. So we got the wire, we got the resin. This thing is going to take a lot of bites, a lot of chews, and hopefully not a lot of branches or trees and snags on rocks. But there we go. That's a little variant there. There's tons of different things you could do differently to this, but I really like this, especially in the fall fishing. Fishing it off of my point fly as a tag in, and I've had really good luck with this color scheme and similar ones. And so the other thing I almost forgot here is to pick out our dubbing. Always do that. I seem to can't find my Velcro brush, so go ahead and I'll have to pick up a new one. But tie some up, fish them. Hopefully they pierce some lips for you.